right, we are live. Let me get my Amazon thing going. And then we will unbox the iPad. There we go. We are live. I feel like I just did one of these, and I did, but it was last year, I think. Maybe it was 2 years ago. Because I'm pretty sure I reviewed the iPad Air, the current look of it, not that long ago, but maybe that was more than, let's see. So the last time I looked at the iPad Air, it was November of 2020. So now it's almost 2 years. It's like a year and a half. Wow. Interesting. So we will see what this new one looks like. William Wilkinson is here. Hello. Nethead is here. Looking forward to this one, as is Romeric, I'm sure. Yes, we're going to do some unboxing. And I'm going to record the unboxing for my Extras channel. So we will do that as well. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I am pretty sure this is compatible with the keyboard that I already have on my iPad Pro. And we'll see if this one will best my iPad Pro from a couple of years ago. CM is here. Nick Forsopa is here. Daniel C is here. And we're going to get started in just a minute. We're going to unbox the iPad Air. I bought this the other day because these actually do okay on my channel. Depends on the year. But let me see how we did last time we did one of these. So, I didn't do too good on that one. I got about 8,000 views total. These are hard to review because everybody reviews the iPad, right? It's such a ubiquitous product that every tech channel reviews these. I'm at a disadvantage because Apple chooses who gets them early, and whoever gets them early gets the most views on their videos. So anytime you see, I'm not bitter about it, just the way it is, but there's a financial advantage to those who get the iPads earlier than others. So yeah, we're going to get this unboxed in a second. Big Man wants to know, how am I doing? I'm doing great. Things are good. Mark wants to know, how is this different than the other iPad? Well, this one has now the M1. So this iPad Air has the same M1 chip as the Macs do, but it doesn't run Mac OS. It only runs the iPad OS. And what kills me is that I would love for this to become a Mac when you dock it, but that's not going to happen. So you got to carry around the MacBook. Although I will say the MacBook Air, which I've had now for almost 2 years, the MacBook Air runs on the same chip. So this computer I have runs on the same chip as this iPad. I have never had a low battery message on this iPad ever. And I take it places. Like I no longer take my iPad anywhere because this Mac is so much better, in my opinion. But people like iPads, so I thought I would get this one and review it. Non-Rev Guy says, excited for this. I've heard that Apple moved the 2 stereo speakers to the top and bottom from both sides of the USB-C port. Oh, interesting. We'll have to check that out. So, and Big Man says, yes, that is very true. That is very true, because I don't have to keep Apple happy to keep my early access to this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to record this, because I'm going to put this up on the Extras channel, the unboxing component. We have a couple of different angles here. Let me get that camera straightened out, and then we will get to the business here. All right, so there it is. Got a couple of different angles here, so I can cut away. So I've got the overhead and the side, and I could do one of these deals. Ooh, fancy. Okay, so I think we're good. Hi. I'm going to totally get this name wrong because it's not coming over correctly, I think, in English. But Hai Han Yen Yuen has, how's my day? Yes, I'm going to be testing it today. We're not going to do a lot with it, but we're going to load up some basic benchmarks and get it set up and all that good stuff. So yes, we will get that going. And yeah, I think the imagery on the box might be different. I got the blue one. And what's neat is that the color of the lettering on the box matches the coloring of the iPad that you get. So that is that one. Newsstand wants to know, what model is this? This is the 5th generation with 64 gigs Wi-Fi. I did not get the cellular one. So it is the, whatever the lowest priced version is what I got. So there you go. All right. So I'm going to start the unboxing recording because my time is limited because I still have to get the wrap-up video done, and I just remembered there's one other thing I want to do with it, so we're going to get that done, and then we'll go from there. And you know what I might do too? Give me a second here. I'm playing around with Telegram, so I'm not streaming to Telegram at the moment, but I was thinking maybe I should have. But I'm going to point people to my live stream before we get going here. Telegram is interesting to me. Michelle Rossi just got one. Oh, actually, you have the iPad, the M1 iPad Pro. Right, so if you have that one, I don't have that one, although my guess, and I'll see when I start running some benchmarks on it, my guess would be that this one is probably not running as fast, even though it has the same chip on board. So I found that Apple does that sometimes. So, but we will see for sure. And let's do this real quick. Oops. My Telegram app is dogging. Here we go. All right. And we're going to get going here in just a second. Okay. Let's get cooking. I got a new message in the Telegram group as well. So let's see what we got in there. Oh, I'd see it cross posts. Okay. All right, we are ready to go. So I'm going to start recording, and we'll figure it out. Now, Michelle says, I didn't know that Amazon had live streams. They sure do. And actually, if you click the follow button, you can get notified every time I go live with one of my techie unboxing things. So check it out. It is a cool system. And Jan says you have to do some mental gymnastics to justify the upgrade. Yeah, I think that's, even with the M1, I would be hard-pressed to upgrade from last year's model. And Mark wants to know, is 256 still the max? It is. And Newstand's thinking about selling his iPad to get this one. And Lotus Root wants to know, can it do 2.5? So you could do 2.5 gig Ethernet, but not, there are 5 gig ones, but I haven't found one that works yet, and the 10 is not going to work. Unless they put, I don't think they put Thunderbolt on these, did they? Let's see. Let me take a look at the specs on this. I'm just going to look at the specs real quick on this to make sure I'm going to look at all of it. All right, so I'm just going to pull up the specifications. Oh, what's interesting is Mac Rumors says that they have not downclocked the M1 versus the Pro. So on the Mac Rumors site, at least, they're saying that this one performs as well as the Pro does. So that's something. All right, let me do, I'm just going to go to the specs page. I just want to make sure I've got all my facts together here before I start blabbing away. All right, so it weighs 1.02 pounds. It's got a speaker on the top and the bottom, but not on the sides. Let's see, it comes with the USB-C charge cable and a power adapter, which we'll see in a minute. It's got the LED backlit technology, but not the fancier screen that the Pro has. 500 nits of brightness, 8-core, so it's got 8 CPU cores, 8 graphics cores, actually, which is more than the entry-level iPad Air gets. And it'll do 4K at 60 frames per second. But the front camera is going to do 1080p. But what I am looking for on this is me see something here. I'm just looking through. Yeah, so 256 is the max. I was going to look for something, and I totally forgot what I was looking for. Shows you the state of mind I'm in. Okay, I'm just going to get this thing opened up so we can see what's inside, and then we'll go from there. All right. Alien says, open it already. I like to drag these things out. We got to get the chat in here. Because when I go live, I don't schedule these things, you know. So we only have like 67. So we'll get there. And I did get the new SE phone, which we'll have another stream about that one, I think. So I did get that one in along with this, but I thought I would do this one first. So we're going to get this done first, and then we'll move over to the other one. All right. Thunderbolt, Garrett, Guy, thank you. So this is why I have the chat room, because I forget things. So it's USB Type-C and not Thunderbolt. I read right over it. So yeah, there's no Thunderbolt on this. It is USB-C. But it supports charging DisplayPort, and it does support USB 3.1 Gen 2, which will go up to 10 gigabits per second. So it does have the faster USB-C port on board. Michelle says the iPad Air has always been a good contender to the Pro. It has, hasn't it? Because it's been very close in its functionality. I would say now the display is probably the big in size, because you can get a bigger iPad Pro. But we'll go from there. Because I think the iPad Pro, let me just check that real quick, and then we'll get started, is, because the iPad Pro has that fancier display. So the Pro, same processor, but I always thought the M1 is kind of overkill on the iPad, but what do I know? Yeah, so the M1 has the the Pro has the liquid retina display, and the 12.9 has the XDR. So the display on the Air is probably going to be comparable to the prior version of it. So there you go. All right. And I could just ask in the chat here, and everyone knows the answers already. I'm not even going to bother looking things up anymore because I have all of you. So here's, yeah, so it went from USB 3, 5 gig to 10. That is correct. And Datre is here. Adam is wondering what's the differences between the ER iPad and iPad Air. I'm assuming that's the entry-level one. We'll see. And then Zozu says there's a creaky back panel. We'll look into that. We'll check that out. And Michelle has the big Pro with the 3 cameras. That's right. So they have more cameras on the Pro also. But, you know, I don't use my iPad enough to justify it. I do have an iPad mini, so you can see what that looks like. So it's much smaller. But I like the mini primarily because it's what I was looking for. Like I actually use this more than my Pro because it reminds. I keep thinking about the Star Trek datapad thing, but you know, you can hold it with one hand. It's bigger than my phone, but not too big. So that's where I like to go with my iPads right now. And I have a Pro. I have an older Pro. I have the 11-inch Pro. All right, so we're going to do iPad Air unboxing. I'm just going to set up a recording folder, and we'll kick it off, see what we got. All right? We shall do that, because now I know enough to talk about it, thanks to all of you. All right. Damon says, doesn't this have the same chip as the MacBooks? It does. In fact, it has the exact same chip as what I have in this MacBook Air. But it doesn't run the same operating system, so I don't want to say it's hobbled, but it's not going to do as much, in my opinion. All right. And Newsstand says about the Mini that it's nice when you're in bed and don't want to get smacked with a giant piece of glass when you drop it on yourself. Yeah, I just attach mine to the ceiling. All right. Yeah, so versus the entry level, this will have a faster processor. It supports the 2nd generation Pencil, which I happen to have right here. It's going to be a lot faster. The display is going to be nicer. It's more it's halfway to the Pro, basically. But my kids have the entry-level iPad, and for most people, that is more than adequate. And you can get it for not a lot of money. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and it's time for another unboxing. I got in the new iPad Air the other day. This is the version with the M1 processor, the newest one that just came out. And the last time we looked at the iPad Air was in November of 2020, so this is the new and improved version. It looks a lot like the old one, but again, it's got that faster processor inside. From what I'm reading, they are not slowing it down versus the iPad Pro. So this has the same performance level as the iPad Pro, and it actually has the same processor inside as my MacBook Air with an M1 processor, but it doesn't run Mac OS. It runs iPad OS, which might limit some of the things you can do on it. And we're going to unbox it right now, but then we're going to have a full review to come later. Now, I purchased the blue one, and in full disclosure, I paid for this with my own funds, and all the opinions you're about to hear are my own, and no one has reviewed or approved what you're about to see before this gets uploaded, nor has anyone paid for what you're about to see here either. And I like the blue. It's a little darker, I think, than the iPad I reviewed last year or 2 years ago. So not bad looking there. It's all aluminum in the back, of course. This one, like the prior edition, has the fingerprint reader here at the top, which doubles as the power button. So I will switch it on here. And again, we're going to have a lot more detail in the full review. It looks like we've got 2 speakers here at the top and another 2 here at the bottom. It's got a USB Type-C port. This is a fully functional port, so you can plug it into an external display. You can also hook up data devices to it, and of course bring power into it. So if you have a docking station, you can connect that up with it. And of course, iPads now work with keyboards and mice too. The display on this is going to be nice, but not as nice as the iPad Pro display. So the iPad Pro has more cameras, it has a nicer display, it has larger screen options, but this one offers a lot, including the same performance. This also works with the Apple Pencil, the 2nd generation Pencil, which connects here to the side to charge. So in many ways, it looks a lot like the prior iPad Air, but as we'll find out hopefully in the full review, it will perform a lot faster. So that's the iPad part. And let's take a look and see what else we get. I should be getting my little stickers in here. I've got a lot of these collected over the years. And you have a quick start guide here for getting started. Now, unlike the iPhone, you do get a power adapter in the box. This is one of those 20-watt faster charging USB-C connectors, or plugs or whatever. So you've got that, and then you have a USB-C to USB-C cable for charging it. This does not use the lightning cable like the entry-level iPad does or some of the older ones out there. This uses the USB-C standard, which is nice to see that standard on at least some Apple products here, so you can charge it up with any USB-C based charger. So that is it for the unboxing. And stay tuned because we're going to be back with a full review of this coming up very soon. So until next time, this is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching. All right, one take wonder right there. So now we're done with the unboxing, and I can get this cooking here. All right, so I've got to set this up, so we're going to do that. It's got 96% on the battery, so we don't need to charge it. It's always good when you have a full charge. And I'm going to set this up manually just because I don't want it to like download all the stuff. So we're going to have it join my Wi-Fi here. Oops. And we'll get going there. I'm not used to having an iPad this big. What's going on here? So I'm trying to type in my password. So the second I tap on the keyboard, it doesn't let me type. Let me try it again. So I'm not hearing any creaking, by the way. That was a concern somebody had. It doesn't sound like it's creaking at all. So let me see. Let me show you what happens here. So when I start typing on the... Oh, now it's working. All right, so let me do that. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to type in the password to connect to the Wi-Fi. And then I am going to connect it to my account so that I can bring in all the apps that I own. And it's going to take a few minutes to activate my iPad. Apple must wonder why I buy so much stuff if I'm just one guy. But I usually sell these if I don't use them after I review them. All right, so now we're going to go through the data and privacy garbage. I'm going to set up the Touch ID. So the way this works is the fingerprint sensor is on the top. So we just place my finger down here. And you can register multiple fingers with it. And this is the same sensor now that was on the prior Air and also the iPad mini. And now it's going to do a little bit more of my finger. So it's going to want to get a couple different angles of it. Because it is narrower than your finger is, so you may not always grab it the same way. And now we're done. And I'm going to set the additional fingerprint up later. All right, so now I'm going to set up a password to get into it. So give me 1 second on that, folks. Michelle says they should put the USB-C port on the iPhone already. I agree with you completely. And let's see, I'm not going to transfer anything over, but I am going to log into my Apple ID. And then we will put some stuff on it and see how it performs. So far, it feels about the same as every other iPad I've used, like the performance, that's the thing that bugs me about this stuff is that you often don't get, hang on 1 second, I think I forgot my password. Oh, there we go. I got to do my two-factor authentication. You often don't get the full, there's really no apps that take advantage of what these iPads can do. So for example, there was a discussion about what does this one do that the lower end iPad doesn't. And I've run like Photoshop type of apps on my daughter's entry-level iPad from 4 years ago. And it works fine. She can use the pencil, she can draw on it. Doesn't have a lot of, the biggest limiter has been the storage, honestly. Because we've been using Procreate, and the images it makes are enormous, and it doesn't store those very efficiently. You can't put them in the cloud, for example. All right, so we're not going to transfer anything over, and we're going to bring all this stuff in. And let's go do this later. And we can do the hey, you know who. All right, so now we are in. Now I wonder if there's going to be an update for this thing. Undoubtedly. Oh, it's up to date. iPad OS 15.4. We're ready to go. So I think the first thing that I want to do is I want to run a benchmark. So just hang on a second. It's asking me all these questions. Do I want to add to my iMessage? I do not want to add that, actually. I'm going to put this on Do Not Disturb. Okay. All right, so we're going to grab a benchmark first. I always like to run the 3D Mark benchmarks. And they have two of them. We have the Slingshot and Wildlife. Wildlife is the newer one. And I might do Geekbench also, just because it's kind of a new platform that they have here. So let's grab 3D Mark. I'll show you what I'm doing here. And we'll grab the Wildlife benchmark. And while we're at it, we'll put Geekbench on there too. Brian said they should put the new fingerprint. I agree with you, because you know what the thing that gets me is, like, when I'm in the car, I don't want to look at the phone to unlock it because I'm trying to keep my eyes on the road. And I'm not saying I need the phone to, sometimes if you just want to send a message or do something, you got to unlock the phone. All right, so we're going to do the Wildlife test first. And I usually run, let me take a look at what we got here. So make sure I run the right one. Because there's two different Wildlife benchmarks. There is the Extreme, and then there is the regular one. So we're going to run the regular one. So, wildlife. Okay, so we're going to put this in unlimited mode. I like how it says, your device is too powerful for this test. But we're going to run this one first, and then we'll run the extreme, because I have scores to compare it with on my computer screen here. So what I'm going to do, actually, is share that with you in a second. Put this over here. And that way, I can show you what I'm looking at when we go ahead and add the scores to it. So if you go to Lon.TV/benchmarks, you can see this on your own screen. Michelle says she loves those classic games and consoles. Awesome. Yeah, I've got all sorts of fun stuff back there, and it all works, and it's all mine from when I was a kid. So that Sega Genesis up there is one of the originals. I bought it or it was bought for me as a kid in August of 1989. It's getting up there in the years, just like me. All right. So we're going to ignore the Apple Pay thing. Now I'm going to run this benchmark in what's called the unlimited mode. And we do that because it renders everything off screen. So it gives this is a better way to run it. So we're going to hit start. Let me make the screen a little brighter. Oh, it's at its full brightness. It doesn't feel like it's as bright as it could be. But I'm also spoiled by my iPhone, which is a lot brighter than this. But the screen looks nice. But it looks like the other one. It doesn't look any different. All right, so we're going to hit start. And this is going to run, you're going to see it just like render as little squares on the screen here, but we'll get a score when it's done. And then after it finishes, I will show you the spreadsheet that I use to track all this stuff. And of note, we want to see, is it going to come in, because I have the iPad Air somewhere on here. I thought I had it on here. There it is, right here. It's right on top of it. So what I want to see when this is finished, if this will come in at around the same score that we got for the M1 MacBook Air. And we're done already. So actually it does. Oh my goodness. So this thing, this is what, again, kills me about these iPads. Let me zoom in a little bit. The score is 18,000. I'm going to add it to the list here. You can see it exactly in context. So, I mean, it is within the margin of error of the iPad or the MacBook Air M1. Which is crazy. So this is an Apple M1, and the score is 18,242, and there's 109.2 FPS. Now I want you to look at something here, because this score is exactly, I mean, it performs exactly like my M1 does with the same chip. I mean, that should not be a surprise, but this is an iPad. And the MacBook is a laptop, but it performs the same. The problem is that it doesn't run the same software, and that to me is where I always get into, so there you go. Amda Brown says, the fold in my sweater reminds me of the Star. Yeah, it does kind of look like that, like right up here on the collar, or right there with the. I always wanted one of those Star Trek uniforms. I never got one. I wanted it to look like legit. I once made one for a school project, but that didn't go over too well. Stephen Morris is here. You end up here. Thank you very much for your kind words. And Michelle Rossi, thank you for running that on yours. So Michelle Rossi just ran that test on her iPad Air. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to add your score, if you don't mind, to my spreadsheet, because that'll help explain this to viewers. So I'm going to move this out of the way here. So, and I'm going to give you credit for it. So we're going to go and look at so you got a score of 18,325. So just all within the margin of error. So this is the iPad Pro 2021, I think that one is. And that's also an Apple M1. And you got 18,325 and 109.7 FPS. And we're going to give credit to Michelle Rossi. Thank you for running that for me. So the question is the iPad Air the same level of performance as the Pro? And the answer is yes, at least insofar as this benchmark is concerned. But this is a good benchmark because it really mimics what you would get. And thank you, Michelle. It's an iPad 11. And Michelle's on the Amazon chat, which is why you don't see her in the YouTube one. But it really has the same performance as the more expensive Pro, but it doesn't have the nicer screen and the cameras. And actually, there was a question that just came in from Bryant about why are the iPads so much cheaper than the phones? And I think it's the screen, it's the camera system. You don't have, in this case, you don't have the cellular radio on it either. So there's a lot less from a component standpoint, and it's also larger. So the components don't need to be made as small, and I would imagine smaller things cost more to make. And Ed got 38,000 on their PC on the extreme mode. I haven't run the extreme one on mine yet, but we are going to do extreme now. So why don't we do that? So I'm going to go back, and we'll go back to benchmarks. And what we're going to do now is run the extreme test, again in unlimited mode. I'll show you the non-unlimited one because it looks pretty cool. So let's start that. And this will get a lower score, but this is more demanding also. It renders at a higher resolution. But we're rendering off screen, so we don't have anything like timings or other upscalers or things to wait for. It just kind of does its thing. So this will take a little bit longer to run. Let this go here. And I think I said hello to you, Stephen Morris. I know I put you up on screen. I can't remember if I welcomed you or not. So hello there. Let's see what else we got in here. Oliver wishes they had wireless charging. I guess if you had a flat pad, that would work, right? And Mi Pro is here. And SC says LumaFusion 4K editing app is a good test of iOS. I'll have to check that one out. And I am not hearing this creaking issue that people are talking about. All right, so now on the extreme test, again, run in unlimited mode, we got a score of 4,740. And again, we're expecting a lower outcome here, 28.4, oops. 28.4 FPS. And that, once again, is exactly what we got on the M1 MacBook Air. So I'll zoom in on that for you so you can see that. And if you go to Lon.TV/benchmarks, you can see this for yourself on your own screen. And Michelle, if you could run the extreme, that'd be great. So there you go, exactly the same performance as what we got on the M1 MacBook. And let's see. Hey, the Macintosh librarian is here. On the previous gen iPad Air, she got 24, 21, and 14.5 frames per second on the extreme. Thank you. So I'm going to put that in too. Because I had that one. I don't think I ever ran the extreme on it. So let me go back to that screen, and I'll give you the credit there. And the Mac Librarian's got a great channel. You should check it out. She did a whole thing on logo recently, which was something I learned to program on as a kid. That was really cool. All right, so let me go over to, back to my spreadsheet here, and we're going to load up the iPad Air. So if we look at the prior generation one, did I even run it on that one? I did. Okay, so this is from the one with the A14. So you can see immediately the difference here, 8607 versus 1842. Just touch my ID in there real quick. I'm going to make it so that this this stays on longer. You know, only weighs a pound, but it feels like I'm so used to my iPad mini. And what's funny is the iPad mini looks like this, but it's smaller. So if you wanted to see what the mini looked like next to it, and I'll just set the display here to not turn off for a few minutes. Auto lock, we'll do it after 10 minutes. So this is the iPad mini versus the Pro, or the Air, I'm sorry. So they're definitely a lot bigger. This is a 10.9-inch display, if I'm not mistaken, versus like 6 inches or whatever this one is. So you can see that it takes up just a kind of a corner of it. But they look very similar. Like the design is the same. So you have, hang on a second here. So you have your switches in the same place. The speaker placement looks the same. So it's just like one is a bigger version of the other. But otherwise, the design elements are almost identical. The screens even look the same. Like the color matches almost perfectly between the two. So that's the big difference. And Michelle ran, oh good, I got to put the Mac Librarian score in too. So on the extreme, 2421 and 14.5 frames per second. So let's do that real quick and get that in there before I forget. So the iPad Air 2020 and 2421 and 14.5 FPS, and that is for the Macintosh Librarian. Thank you. All right, and then Michelle ran the extreme test on the iPad Pro 11 and got 5,059 and 30.3 FPS. So slightly better there than mine, but it's still like kind of within the margin of error, right? So it's close enough that I think if I were to run it again, we would probably get a score like that. All right. Oliver wants to know, yes, the Mini still has the jelly scrolling. I'm going to check this one and see if it has the same. This does not appear to have that issue. So the Mini had an issue where when you scrolled up and down, you would see a little bit of jelliness to the screen. This does not have that issue. It gets a little motion blur. That's kind of normal. But it doesn't have that jelly effect. And what I'm not hearing on it, so some people were talking about it creaking at the bottom. I'm not getting that. Like mine is, it feels like an iPad that doesn't make any noise when you pick it up. And Mamo, I'm right with you. What is the point of an ultra-fast and expensive CPU in a productivity tablet? I have no idea. I mean, that's why I think if this ran, if this ran the Mac OS, I would be all into that. But it doesn't. Here's another one we're going to do. Let's do a quick one here. I'm just curious on the web browsing performance. This is Safari. We usually run this in Chrome. But this is like a little benchmark I run to see how well it can perform. And I don't know if I ran this in Safari. I think maybe I did, because when I first got the MacBook Air, well, I can look at it and tell you right now. So if we go over to the speedometer benchmark test, let's see, MacBook Air. Yep, I did run it there. Okay, perfect. So we'll have a good apples to apples here. So we should get a score. Oh, okay, yeah. It came in a little faster than my MacBook did, but I think that might be because the browser is more up to date. Because I got the MacBook like 2 years ago. And the browsers actually improve in their performance over time. They become more efficient. But believe it or not, this iPad is now the second highest performing computer. So if you go back to here, I'll put it up on screen so you can see it. So on this benchmark test, oh, you know what? It's plus or minus 20. That's a big margin of error. Let's test that again. I mean, it's still going to be up there, but plus or minus 20 is quite a bit. And then we'll do some pencil stuff. And now, yes, now it's a much better score. And it's actually better than it was. So 265.8 on the browserbench.org speedometer test. We'll just round. We'll do 265.8. And that score is second only to my MacBook Pro 14. So from a browsing standpoint, this will actually feel like a Mac if you're running Safari, like as far as the speed of rendering is concerned. So like if we go over to the NASA homepage, it's just like boom. Yeah, like, okay, now what? All right, so there we go. We got that done. Let's see what we got here for questions. AJ says, I would agree with you on that. Certainly longevity. Yeah, I mean, it may take a while before developers really make use of it. I will say this much, that it actually is good that they put this processor in this iPad, because this is the one that I think, people that are looking for an iPad generally land with one of these. The Pro is not sold doesn't sell as many units as this does. So if they are putting by the way, it's pretty warm. If they are putting the M1 in this one, I think that will help entice developers to develop something that takes advantage of that chip. I will give you that. And Michelle got 250 on the iPad Pro for that test we just ran. Thank you for doing that, Michelle. I appreciate it. Plus or minus 15. So you're probably right in the same boat. Yeah, I mean, there's no performance difference, at least in the benchmarks that we ran, between this one or the Pro or the Mac even, which is nuts, but that's what it is. So yeah, so now we got to find stuff that can take advantage of the M1 chip. So let's see, M1 Mac or iPad apps. Let's see if we can find anything that can really. Let's see, the best 8 iPads that's on the M1 Mac. So let's look up best iPad Pro apps, and I'll take some recommendations from you all also. So iMore usually has some good stuff. So it's the usual suspects like Procreate. Excel, they have Excel in there for some reason. Affinity Photo, Paper, Pixelmator, which I have on my Mac, Codea, This one's built around the Lua. Should try that one, 15 bucks. iMovie, yeah, we could put some iMovie stuff in there. The Complete Anatomy Platform 2022. Free let's try that's a free one. So let's put that one on here. I just want to load up a bunch of stuff that I can demo. And that's kind of the challenge, right? Like what is out there that we can really demo here? At the same time, I think if you've got the Air from 2 years ago, there's not much that can, I think that would make a big difference here. So this is the Complete Anatomy Platform. How come I can't find it? Let's see. The world's most accurate, advanced. Looks like it's not compatible, or it's not available. Nada. And sometimes they curate some things for you too. App of the day. Stories for you. Oh, you know, I've got one of those Apple Arcade accounts through my cellular phone. I get a free one for like a year. Let's search for iPad Pro and see if they give you anything on that. I want to be curated here. I don't want to hunt around for stuff. Yeah, they don't really give you much here, do they? It's funny, they have this Encanto single. My 8-year-old, for whatever reason, cannot stand Encanto right now. Like, she just can't deal with it. And because all her friends are singing it all day long in school, and it drives her crazy. So she's been not having it. Let's see, any heavy-duty games? DOSBox X with Windows 95. Is there a DOSBox for this? I don't think, I'd have to like jailbreak it, right? Lots of people are saying LumaFusion is better than iMovie. How does it handle files? Can I just put files on an external drive with LumaFusion? Because that's been the big impediment for me on a lot of video editing. Oh, I actually own it. Did I buy this a while ago? I must have. Or it's got like in-app purchases. I can't remember. All right, so here's LumaFusion. Let's take a look at that. All right, so probably want to go this way. Oops. All right, so frame rate will, yeah, so I do most of the stuff that I shoot on my phone is, okay, so here we go. We don't need any tutorials. All photos and videos. Hasn't pulled in anything from my iCloud. I guess I hit this, photos. I gotta figure out where my media went. I did attach it to my account, so it should be finding those. All right, there we go. You know what it was is I didn't have it wasn't connected to power. So it needs to update the thumbnails in the library so we can start looking at it here. And we'll see what we got here. Loving Literacy just popped into the Amazon chat. What's the difference between an Air and a regular one? I saw an Air iPad on sale, but wanted to know what it did. So the big difference is processing power to some degree. The other is the screen is a little better on this one. It's a little bit larger. This supports the 2nd generation pencil. And now with the new one, it is significantly faster. But for what most people do with an iPad, it's kind of a hit or miss kind of thing. I would say if you are looking for if you're doing basic work on an iPad, you don't need this one. If you are doing a lot of higher end stuff like trying to video edit or whatever, I think the Air is going to be the sweet spot now just because of the processor that they have on board. But to be honest with you, like if I was doing video editing, I would be buying a Mac versus the iPad. But we'll see how this does. So I've got some 60 frames per second stuff in here. And let's bring in some clips that can work. So let's do, I got this one here. So we'll just drag this down and see how this works here. I have not used this editing program. Oops. So I can just drag it onto, there we go, onto the timeline. There we go, and I can just play it back. My daughter was making those little snowball things. Looks nice and crisp on here, that's for sure. And this is a 4K 60 frames per second video, which, by the way, I can edit on my iPad, on my MacBook just fine. Okay, so we got a little bit there. And then I got the dog here, so maybe we'll have the dog come next into the clip. But I will say it's kind of hard to edit on an iPad. And then, if I can put a transition in, let's see if I can figure that out. I know it's going to be painful for those of you who actually use this all the time. You can change the layout also. So I want to do a transition here because right now it's just going to be a cut. And my daughter was wearing the face mask because it keeps her face warm. So the one benefit of the pandemic is we figured out a way to keep our faces warm when it's cold out. This is a few weeks ago now because now it's a lot warmer. All right, so let me go back and see if there is a, so I want to do a transition here. Let's see, so if I do that goofy dog. Here we go, user effects, so those are the effects. There we go, transition. Stabilize presets. Everything's appearing upside down. Oops, I want to do that. Oh, great. Now I'm screwing up everything. All right, so I got this one here. I could see myself using this. All right, let's see. I'm looking for some help here on this thing. Patrick brings up another good point on the Air versus the original iPad. So this has a laminated screen. So it does look a lot nicer, absolutely, because it does keep the fingerprints down and the screen has less glare to it. It doesn't look as cheap. Let's see. AJ says that download was immediate. Yeah, I've got my gigabit here, and this I'm assuming works over my Wi-Fi 6 also. The dog loves snow, by the way, because she's a snow dog. All right, so now we just got to figure out, so maybe we have to hover over it longer is what somebody said here. Let's hold this down. So that doesn't seem to do anything. Let's go to, see, these are all like effects, but not transitions. And I thought this might be, but these are more like motions. Oh, okay, maybe this, no, this is picture-in-picture stuff. Oh, here we go, transition. Okay, so that's a cross dissolve. So let's see how that renders in. There it goes. Not bad. If I hold it down, how do I change it? So what did I do to make that work before? So let's trash that and try it again. So transition. See, it just defaults to that. Oh, I see. Does it come from up there? Transitions. There we go. Okay, so I could do a whole bunch of different ones here. There's wipes and slides and pushes. Let's do a cross zoom. So I'll replace it with that. Well, that's pretty cool. I can make it longer too. You know what's amazing is how fast that renders. This is 4K 60 footage, and it hasn't done any like transcoding yet. It's pretty wild. And Loving Literacy says, Sage, she's a cutie. Yeah, that's my oldest, my daughter Kira. Yeah, she went nuts on it. We had a pretty big snowstorm, and the snow didn't stay very long, so we were eager to get it done. I had bought those things. Somebody on Twitter had one, and they made a bunch of ducks, and I was like, you know what? I bet you my kids would like that. So I bought my kids a set of these things. My other daughter was like, I'm not going outside. My little one doesn't like snow or anything like that. Loving Literacy wants to know, does the video editor come with the iPad? They do have iMovie, which comes with it, which is not a bad video editor. This one feels a little more complete. And apparently I bought it a long time ago because it was there. Yeah. Is the screen 4K? No, it is not. It is, it's like 2K-ish, I believe. And here's a good question, because I can answer this succinctly. Is the M1 version different from the iPad mini? No, it feels very much the same, but the process, it's going to be much faster for the kinds of things that we're doing with it right now. And there's the mini versus the Air. So it's a lot smaller, and the Air is a lot faster. I bet you the Air is going to get better battery life because it is bigger, so it can have a bigger battery. But to Loving Literacy's question, this is Luma Fusion is the app that I'm using here. Pretty cool. Okay, so we got that. Maybe I want to add some text. So it looks like the plus button, wherever that went, is what you use to add things. So what I can do is get my cursor positioned here. Go to titles. We can do some titling. Let's try something funky. Try this. It doesn't, does it animate? No, it doesn't animate. But it does show. How do I edit the darn thing? Let's see. I want to edit some text. How do I edit the text? But you know, let's go full screen with it. But it's pretty neat. I mean, it's rendering out all this text on top of this 4K 60 video. And I don't think it's done any transcoding of the video either. So it's, it's doing all of it in hardware. Although I would venture to say it's probably not quite frame accurate. I mean, I could step through frames, but I would imagine to get frame accuracy, you'd probably want to go to ProRes, which apparently these chips could probably support because I do it on my Mac. Okay, here we go. Now I can edit the Winter Fun with Kira. Kira is the daughter, and the dog is Sasha. And Sasha. All right, there we go. So now we go back and bring this back to the beginning of the video. Then I think what I want to do at the end of this is put in, see now I'm starting to get the hang of this, right? So we're going to do a cross dissolve at the end of this. So watch what happens now. So Winter Fun, cross dissolve, there it goes. And then a zoom, yeah, look at that. Not bad. Feels pretty quick. And for those of you that use this on a regular basis, you probably have some thoughts on it. Now, Loving Literacy says, I'm only using this for email, Kindle, and drawing, but since my daughter is drawing for lessons, I may get... Yeah, if it was a kid, I would probably go with the original, the entry-level one, just so they don't break it. The other thing on the entry-level iPad is that the pencils are cheaper for it. So the, like they have Logitech has something called the Crayon, which is not that expensive. That works with the old one. The newer pencil that this one uses is about $110, which is in the video description there. And this one docks up and charges on the side here. And we're going to pair that up real quick. All right, so that's paired up. And now I can use the, I think I can use it. Maybe this doesn't support it. There it goes. So I can use the pencil with the video editor. I wonder if I could draw on the screen. That'd be cool. I see these are all shapes that are already there. You can actually adjust a lot of things here. This is pretty cool. All right. And CF says, I've always found, yeah, me too. I found it really difficult. I mean, there's times when I'm out somewhere, I'm like, I got to edit something really quick, and I could do it on the phone, but yeah, it's hard to do it. Stuart wants us to try out the ISS docking simulator from SpaceX. I guess that runs on the web, right? And Tech Nerd says, yeah, I probably could use something rubberized on there. And Patrick says, LumaFusion is great on the go, especially if you get used to it. LumaFusion plus keyboard is awesome. And see, this was what interests me, is that apparently, he says, works with a bunch of SSD drives now. So I'm going to need to poke around with that a little bit more. Because that's always been, for me, the biggest problem is that I've had to have the video on the local storage. And, you know, yes, if it's compressed video from the phone, you could probably work with it. But it's harder when it's, you know, you're working with something that I might shoot here in the studio. So that for sure would be a bit different there. All right. Cool. Well, that seems to work pretty nicely. Now, when we turned it on, we were at 96%. Now we're at 77% because we're killing it. And that's the one thing with these, is that the battery tends to take a hit. All right, when you're doing the big stuff. What else can we do on here? But you see my point? It's like, okay, we did that. Now what? Let me see if I can load up one of my keynotes here. So I don't think I have my font installed on this. So we'll see how this one looks. I will say this definitely feels warmer than most iPads that I have used. Here's a sneak peek of tonight's video. Yeah, it seems to run as pretty much the same speed as my, this is Keynote. How do I get out of here? Oops. Presentations, there we go. Yeah, it works. Maybe we'll look at a game real quick. Let's see if we can find a game that we can take advantage of this thing. All right, so what is, like, we could look at the NBA 2K22 Arcade Edition. It's like number 2 on the list. Let's do that one. So I have the Apple Arcade subscription. It's like my phone service comes with it. Ha! Here's a good one, everybody. This iPad can also be used as a heating pad. That's great. I like that. Yeah, we're going to be doing a thing on Telegram tonight, DL. I find it fascinating and somewhat concerning at the same time, if that makes sense. It's like, as a content creator, I kind of like it because of what it lets you do, but at the same time, I can see why people are concerned about it. And Loving Literacy has used Telegram. And you know what I've done is I've set up a channel, a Telegram channel. I did this over the weekend just to play around with it. I have a group set up, and from a content creator standpoint, now granted, I'm not reporting on world events or anything, so you know, I'm not worried about I'm not organizing the next revolution sort of stuff, right? So from that perspective, it's intriguing to me. I think what they have done with it in the sense of security and privacy is that they purposely haven't put security in place that would prevent a government from seeing what's going on in the platform. Let's put it that way. So they're not giving things over, but they also made it insecure enough that if somebody's listening on the wire, I'm not talking about their systems. I think their systems are probably secure, but that's fine. They don't need to break into the systems. They can see the traffic coming across. And I think that's probably the trade-off that they've made in putting that platform together. All right, so this is the NBA Arcade basketball game. All right, so let's see if we can get tap screen to continue. Okay, doing as instructed. And I have a game controller here that I could use with it also. All right, okay. I just want to play now real quick. Turn the volume up a little bit here. Oh, it sounds pretty good. That's another thing that'll be better on the iPad Air is the quality of the sound. Whoa. A little loud. In a good way. Looks good. But you know, again, here's another thing. Like, they're not targeting the M1 with this. They're targeting like the A12. So it could look a lot better, I think, on the iPad. I'm not sure which guy I'm even controlling here. All right, here we go. I mean, from this distance, it almost looks kind of real, right? But it's that's pretty good. I see. That's what shifts the player. I think I'm losing here. All right, so let's take a look here. There's some great basketball right there. So I miss like NBA Jam. That was my favorite game. At least basketball game. What is he doing? Get the ball. There we go. Yeah. Now I could also hook up the Xbox controller to this and play that, play with that if I wanted to. All right, out of bounds. But here it kind of looks more like the Xbox 360 or the PlayStation 3, right? Like it could do more than what it's doing. Let's put it that way. All right. So let's see what else we got. I think I'll find a couple other games. But you're not going to find anything that really takes advantage of what this has to offer, because up until last week when this came out, the only iPad that had the M1 on board was the Pro. So I think it's going to take a while. The one good thing, though, is I think Apple Arcade does give some incentive for developers to push the limits a little bit more than they otherwise would, because Apple will pay them either way, right? And I'm sure Apple might incentivize a few developers to look at, going the route of an M1 edition or version of the game, perhaps. And Loving Literacy says, looks like the response time is pretty good from the on-screen display. It feels pretty good. I think having an Xbox controller, which will link up with it, I would probably get an Xbox controller if you plan to play games on it. And you can hook it up to a television also. Non-Rev Guy, do I notice better stereo separation if Apple really moved the two speakers to the top and bottom of the iPad from the left and right of the... Yeah, so they did, and I can't remember now what the other one looked like, but you have a top and the bottom here. So presumably, when you are oriented this way, left is here, right is here. Let's try something real quick. I have an idea. Let me pull up YouTube, because they have like a left-right stereo video we can listen to. So let's do left-right. Here it is. So here's something that I regret doing, which is not coming up with this idea sooner. So this guy took, and nothing wrong with this, brilliant. And I am praising the genius here. So this guy took a song from the YouTube library, which you're allowed to do, and made a left-right stereo test of it. And how many views do you think it's received? Want to take a guess? I'll wait for your chats. How many views do you think it got? 47 million. 47 million. Crazy. Okay, so this is left. And I'll tell you what I'm hearing, because I'm only mono right here. So this is left. So in this orientation, oops, it's a little, all right, now if I switch it, and it's a shame I can't demo this because, oops, it sounds really good, by the way. It's a shame I can't demo this because when I change the orientation, you can actually hear the speaker shift. So what it does when it's in this mode is the left-hand side of the top and the bottom are more to the left, and the right is more to the right, top and bottom. So you hear some stereo separation, but it's not as distinct as when you're in this mode. But when you flip it over, it will change the orientation automatically. So right in the middle of the song, I could hear it shifting as I was flipping over. So that was intriguing. But yeah, this video, which is, again, just playing a song from the YouTube library, and what it does is it goes from left, like it plays out of the left speaker, and then it goes to the right speaker. 47 million views. This guy's probably made, I don't know, $15,000, $20,000 off of this, at least. Not bad. Not bad. Unless they didn't monetize it. I could see that happening. Oh, Genshin Impact's not a bad idea. Maybe I'll try that one out. It looks like my kids are at karate class. So my wife just sent a text through. Let's see if I can pull it up real quick. Yeah, so they do jumping jacks to warm up. It's kind of cute. So this just came in from my wife. So they have they're at karate class. It's my little one right there. Just jump. They're supposed to be doing jumping jacks. So my 8-year-old here, that's her friend. But even she's not kind of doing the whole. Little one just bounces around. Gotta love her. My little one just does her own thing. It's really really cute. All right. All right, so yeah, I'll play around a little bit more with the speaker setting on these too, just to see if I get it. And James says there's only 2 speakers, not 4. Yeah, I'll double check all the speaker stuff. So maybe it is 2. It's got holes for 4, but maybe 2 of them are not actually functional. So that could be what it is. And I would say that's probably another area where they want to differentiate, right? So we'll see what she does there. Mark Bollinger wants to know what style. So this is Kempo. My wife is a second-degree black belt in Kempo. It's a pretty aggressive. You know what? People were talking about the creaking. I'm not hearing it, but now I'm starting to feel like a little flexiness, if that's a word. Like I can almost feel the components inside. Oh wait. Yep. So I feel, now that it's warmed up, I feel, not on the bottom, but like on the top here, I can kind of feel a little, yeah, I'm feeling exactly what people are talking about now. I can feel it. I don't hear it creaking, but I can feel Yeah, it's definitely not something I've felt on the other one. It's hard to put it into words. But I could feel how people would call it a creak. And it feels like it is maybe it's the flex to it, I don't know. But I'm feeling it, and that's not something I typically feel. And I did not feel it when it was cool. And I wonder if because this does feel like it runs a little hotter than my other iPad. Not a lot more, but a little bit. Like it definitely feels warmer. And you saw the things that we were doing with it. So yeah, I don't hear it rattling. It's more of a creak. Back pocket test. I don't have a pocket that big. Nice try. But yeah, it feels like it creaks a little bit. Now, H. Christopher wants to know in the Amazon chat, what would make it so popular? So that video we were talking about. So I'll pull it back up so everyone knows what I'm talking about here. And actually, that gives me the opportunity to test what people suggested here. So what made it popular is how the YouTube algorithm works. So I'm just trying to hear if there's... Yeah, so I'm only hearing it out of the bottom. Yeah, nothing out of that one. So if I go this way... So it's weird. I was hearing some separation before, but maybe I was hearing things. Let me try this again here. I'll explain that in a minute here. I'm just trying to figure out how many speakers there are.
Flashes and moving images.
All right, so this is the left. All right. Ah, that explains what, okay. So, this is actually interesting. So the way, wait a minute. Okay, all right. Okay, so this is what's happening. Make sure make sure I'm not crazy here. Hang on. Yeah, okay. Okay, so it is not working the way I thought it did. Left is coming out of the bottom, and right, at least at the moment, I'll double check this, but you are correct. There's only one speaker, or two speakers, right where my fingers are. And so when it's left, even when it's in this mode, let me refresh the page and make sure I'm not totally crazy. So if I play it, okay, so now I'm playing it. Yeah. So okay, so I was totally wrong before. I thought I was hearing something different. When it is in portrait mode, the left plays out of the bottom and the right plays out of the top. And it keeps that orientation even when you do this. I'm really confused here. So if I switch it, okay, that's this shifting I'm feeling. Okay, so that's really weird actually. So when it's on right, it plays out of the top. When it's on left, it plays out of the bottom. When I orient it this way, it flips it. So left goes from here to here, if that makes sense. Now, I don't know on the Pro. I think the Pro has the right number of speakers. So that's probably what's going on there. Now, in regards to this video, the reason why it has 48 million views, just about, is because when people search for this, they play it and they stay on it for a while. And so it racks up the watch time. And for YouTube, it's all about watch time. So if this video is, and it's very useful. The way this guy did it was the most useful way to approach this problem. And in doing so, he gets the reward of all the traffic. It's a minute and 46 seconds long. People probably come back to it all the time like I do. And whenever you search for it, this is the first one that pops up. He's only got 82,000 subscribers, but 48 million views. He's got more views on this one video than, so I have about 100 million views since I started like 10 years ago. So this one video for this guy is half the views I've been able to rack up in 10 years. Let's see what else he's got. He's got another one. So why would you, see, he makes another one here, but that one's only got 26,000 views. He just did that 5 months ago. It was almost like he kept trying to like hit the jackpot again. He's got a bunch of these left-right tests and base tests and all sorts of other stuff. But the one that did it for him, but you can see like you can keep trying and it never, it's like lightning. It hits sometimes and you get lucky and you know, there you go. That's funny. All right. And Tornado uses it. See, that's what I mean. People use it, right? Okay, so this is what it is. They move. So when you're in landscape, okay, so that's the big difference is that, and I think you were trying to explain that to me earlier, and I didn't get it. But that they used to have them both on the bottom, and now they have moved one to the other side. So when you're in landscape, you get the separation, which you didn't get before. And Mark Bollinger, thank you for the super chat. Do a bend test. All right, well, I'm not going to bend it to break it because I need a little bit more super chat than that. But let's see. I mean, it feels pretty sturdy. But like I said, it's funny, is now that it's cooled off, it's not, I think it's all due to heat. I bet you that the aluminum is getting a little bit softer when it's hot. Oh, it's creaking a little bit. Yeah, it's not bad. I think when I'm finding it more of an issue when it heats up. And I'll make a note to talk about that. I'm just going to put my notes together here real quick. I got to run in a minute. Got to get the next video up. But the performance is crazy good on this thing, for sure. All right, so we'll do that. Gaming. I'm just making some notes here. Creaking sound. All right, got that. Speakers. All right. Right is top. Left is bottom. Okay. All right. What else we got here? I'm just going through my rest of my notes. Patrick said, well, it depends. I have to review it first, and then maybe I'll consider it. But you may as well just buy it and bend it yourself on your own channel, and then you can profit from that. And Reggae says, is this thing literally melting inside? It's possible. I could be bending it wrong. And yeah, I think there's got to be something related to the aluminum moving with that. I have, like, on my MacBook Pro from 2016, you would actually, when it heated up, you could actually hear it would make a cracking sound when it did that. Mark says, I look a little crazy. You know, you never know with me. One of these days. One of these days. All right, so we got the speakers figured out. And what else we got? But yeah, I think there's something about the aluminum expanding or softening up. Hey, One Bag Travel heats up maple syrup with his M1 iPad. And you know where you can get some great maple syrup? My brother's maple syrup farm, ruggedridgeforest.com. Great stuff. We just had some this morning, as a matter of fact. All right. Well, I think I've got enough to start working on my review. The only other thing I wanted to mess around with here, I gotta remember how to do this. If I can, there it goes. Yeah, I can do a little quick note here. So we'll try the Apple Pencil. There's often like a routine that I go through with these things also. Let's get rid of this stuff here. Oh, my pencil stops working. Let's get it. I bet my pencil's battery is probably dead. Apple Pencil, yeah, no pencil review right now because the battery's dead. So let it charge up for a little bit. The pencil though, second generation pencil, it will attach magnetically to the side and it will charge from the iPad, and it sticks to it like this. And it also works with the Mini the same way. So you can see the size difference here. So there you go. And Matthew Kelly, yes, you missed the unboxing, but fret not. There will be an unboxing video on the Extras channel and on Amazon before you know it. So there you go. And Aaron says they included classic teams on NBA. I wonder if the NHL game, if there is one, if they have the classic teams, because I want my my Whalers, the Hartford Whalers. Shameless plug, yes. Got to do the shameless plug for the maple syrup. And CF says when the Note 7 heats up, it makes a cracking sound. Yeah, I think it's hard to avoid that metal expansion, right, with the heat. Now, does anybody know how much RAM this has? That was the other thing that I needed to investigate on this before I head out. Let's see, MacBook Air M1 RAM. I think it's probably 3 gigabytes. What do you all think? Oh, sorry, iPad Air, not MacBook Air. Now, my MacBook Air, I've got 16 gigs of RAM on this. All right, so now remember on the M1, if I'm not mistaken, the RAM is integrated into the processor package. So I think I'm just looking through here. I'm not sure if I know what the RAM level is on this. 8 gigabytes. Is it 8? That's a lot. So here's my complaint. If this thing does indeed have 8 gigs of RAM, it has the same chip as my M1 Mac does, why can't I run Mac OS on it? It would be so much more useful. And I think they would sell a lot more of those keyboard trackpad dock things. So, and I have a friend at Apple, and I told him this. He never talks. He can't tell me anything ever. It's like I have friends in the military that can tell me more than he can tell me. But I said to him, like, you need to take this M1 iPad, and if you can make it so I can dock it and turn it into a Mac, I'm in. Like, I would totally do that. I would totally do that. And everyone's guessing that it's 8 gigabytes. So I'm glad you all enjoyed this. Some people say it's 4. I'm going to find out. I don't know how I'm going to find out, but I will find out. But I think I have some saying 4, some saying 8. So I'll have to look around and see what we got here. And Matthew says, all good? Yeah, the structured ones I think do better, but I like to do these live ones too, because they're always fun to bring in the viewers, and I'm glad you enjoy them. And yeah, I don't put the live videos into my subscription feed because I found they don't get watched that much because they tend to drag on. Like this one, I think we're up to, how many hours are we into this now? We're 90 minutes at this point, which isn't, you know, for me, it's kind of a shorter one. But my structured reviews, I'm usually in and out in 15 minutes, right, as opposed to dragging on for a while. All right, so the iPad Pro has 8 gigs. Jedi says that Geekbench will tell me. Why don't we load up Geekbench and see if it will tell us that? So let's do the Geekbench 5 here and see what we get. 8 gigs. 7.45 gigabytes. How about that? That is a lot for a tablet. So there is, beyond the storage, there's no reason why this could not run OS, whatever it is now, 12, 10, 11. While we're in here, let's run the Geekbench. Eight gigs of RAM. I mean, for all intents and purposes, it is the same as the MacBook Air with far less functionality. And that's a bummer. All right, so MacBook Air, or MacBook, oops. So 8 gigabytes of RAM. That's crazy. And by the way, it shows you too that we're 2 years into this M1 processor and it's still yet to be matched by a competing platform. Because even the new whatever it is, the Mac Studio Mac, it is an M1 at its core. So what they've been doing is they've been adding more GPU cores and more CPU cores, but the architecture is M1. Same as this, same as that. It's just more cores, which can do more things at once. And more graphical cores. But what's crazy is that the entry-level M1 on this one is a little better. It's got more GPU cores than the entry-level MacBook Air does. Insanity, folks, I tell you. And I did not order the Mac Studio just because I don't have a need for it. Because I have a MacBook Pro 14, which is kind of working as a desktop for me now. And I can take it with me if I need power on the road. But to be honest with you, my MacBook Air does most of what I would do it for. So. And Handquake says, remember your military and active duty along with educator discounts. Right, so Apple has discounts for kids in school, for members of the military. You have to go click on the right thing to get it. But be sure to do so. All right, one thing here to show you before I close out is the Geekbench results. And just like the benchmark we ran earlier, I am getting identical scores here, and I'll pull it up on screen in a second. So if we pull down the iPad Air 2022, Apple M1, 1703 for the single core, 6746 for multi-core. And we'll do the compute in a second. But here, let me pull up my spreadsheet here. And here's an example of what I was just talking about. The single core is the same as the MacBook Pro because it's the same architecture. It just has more cores. So it benchmarks quicker on the multi-core because it has more cores. But the architecture on the M1 Max or the M1 whatever the new one is the same because it's just the same core. They just add more. I guess the new one has two of them strapped together now, so they're gonna milk it as much as they can until it's bested in the marketplace, which I don't think it will be bested for a while. And we're gonna run the compute benchmark real quick, and then we'll wrap up. I know I said I was going, but this time I'm really gonna go. David says, would it run better hooked up to power? And you know, it won't. And what's interesting is that the MacBook Air tests that I'm comparing this to were done on power. So maybe I will connect it afterward just to make sure I'm not off on my numbers and that it's not performing better. But this seems to be right in line. I found with Apple that when you need the power, they give it to you. And here we go, 21577 on the multi-core, which actually is a little better than my MacBook Air. Let me zoom in on it here. 21577. Part of me wonders though, because I ran this test when I just got it, and I do have the same graphical core number. You could buy the MacBook Air with 7 or 8 cores. I got mine with 8. I wonder if things like drivers and the operating system and yada, yada, yada have been enhanced or improved since I first ran that test. So I might run my MacBook Air on that test again to see if it comes back any different. But the MacBook Air is actually a good analog to this because they're both fanless, so they will throttle down if they're getting too hot. But this thing's this thing is every bit as much of a amazing computing platform as the M1 Macs are. Yet it cannot run Mac OS. That's my gripe. So there you go. All right. Tech Nerd wants to know, was I in the military? I was not. I have lots of friends who were, but not me. I have two friends that were in a really interesting unit. They're no longer, they've both served their time, but they stayed in for quite a while. And they were in a well drilling detachment. So they were digging wells all over the world. So they did a lot of humanitarian work. They had some really amazing experiences from all the. They were deployed up before all the Iraq and Afghanistan stuff. They were the most deployed unit from the Connecticut National Guard because of their specialty. Really neat unit. And they had a lot of logistics because their well drilling trucks had to be brought over, like all the equipment that went with it, quite a bit of stuff. All right. Well, everybody, I am going to call it an afternoon. I got to finish up some editing. But I'll be back tonight with the weekly wrap-up video, and I'll have the unboxing of this thing up tomorrow. And I will be reviewing this very shortly. I think I've got a lot of what I need to do my review. I'm just trying to feel it now that it's been warmed up a bit. So we're going to have a full review of this coming up very shortly on the main channel. I'll probably target Wednesday for that. I'm going to try to shoot it in the morning before I have to go and do my class up in Hartford. But yeah, feeling it again. Yeah, it definitely, there's a state change in the metal when it's warm. And that's where I think the creaking is coming from. And Jedi makes a good point. You might as well buy a MacBook Air when you factor in the cost of the keyboard. And you probably get better battery life out of it. I'll tell you what, I use this MacBook Air, because this is the M1 Air. This thing is my everything. I don't edit on it just because I have the other computer set up at the desk over there. But I was fully intending to go with the MacBook Pro as like my new daily driver. And it wasn't, for what I do, it wasn't all that faster. Really. Like the video output, same speed, running through the same encoder. So there you go. All right, everybody, got a jet. I will be back before you know it. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back with the iPhone SE as our next unboxing adventure. So have a good evening, and I will catch you all next time, and thanks for watching. And thank you, S. Renda, for the follow on Amazon. Thanks all. Good night.